Hi, Crispin.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good.
Hey,
What's
how are
up?
you?
Good.
It's always nice to have a good mic. What have you been up to?
I have been busy getting ready for a trip to Japan, actually.
Wow. Really? Where are you going in Japan?
I'm going to Tokyo.
Fantastic.
What do you plan on doing in Tokyo?
I'm actually going to be lecturing at the Japan Visual Media Translation Academy, which is the company that I work with here in Los Angeles for a lot of my classes in the LA area. Their main offices obviously are in Tokyo, and they wanted me to come out and do some of my mythology lectures at their offices in Tokyo. So I will be heading out there at the end of March.
Oh, that's actually perfect because I think it'll be cherry blossom season too.
There you go, and it'll be awfully pretty.
Yes.
No, that's you went around March, right? Jason?
I went very beginning of April a few years ago.
Cool. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's really coincidental that we have you on right before that. What is your relations? I think we probably talked about this a little bit last time, although I think we were completely psychologically out of it last year. What's been your experience with Japan? How has it affected your life, your career?
You mean since the tsunami?
Or in general? Or you could go through both. You could start in general. And
Oh, well, I mean, I think in general, I think the fact that I sort of came to a realization somewhere in high school that all my favorite cartoons were Japanese, I think that had a big impact on me artistically, although I didn't realize it at the time. Because that was in the days before the interwebs. And it wasn't until well after college and I was in grad school before I was able to reconnect with anime. So I'd been watching anime on TV in high school and really was out of touch with it in college because we didn't have much TV where I was going to college, and the internet the World Wide Web didn't really exist. It was only Usenet and Archie and Veronica. And so it wasn't until I got to New York and started getting into the anime industry itself that Japan had a much that the seeds that had been planted when I was young came to fruition in New York as I became a voice actor and started working on anime professionally. And that's had a huge impact both artistically and personally on me, because the wonderful freedom that I have experienced by looking through the world through a different culture's lens. I've always been grateful for that. Most of my life, I think, for whatever reason, I've ended up jumping between different worlds. And so I really appreciate having multiple perspectives on things. And Japan is this very interesting country that has this intimate relationship with the U.S. ever since World War II, and we basically told them how to run their country. And this sort of ping-ponging of cultures back and forth with this sort of tight, modern economic integration is sort of very interesting. So I love it because I get to look at what the Japanese do and say, look, they don't think anything like us. And they do things completely differently, and it's sort of cool. Huh, maybe we should think about that.
What was it like, it's sort of taking that from sort of idealization to reality? Like the first time you visited Japan, what was, I guess, what were sort of some of the things that you noticed that maybe you thought in your mind that weren't necessarily true about Japan when you went there?
Well, I'm not sure I ever idealized Japan. I just thought Japan was fascinating. So, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Otaku no Video, the anime that Gainax made that's sort of semi-autobiographical, where they interview the one white guy who's living in Tokyo, and he calls it the Golden Land.
Yeah.
And I mean, I never thought of Japan as the Golden Land. I just thought it was interesting that they had options for storytelling. They had different possibilities for storytelling than tended to happen in America. I mean, America doesn't write about giant robots, and the Japanese can't stop writing about giant robots, you know? So, and it's not to say that that makes it superior or idealized. It just makes it different. And I go, oh, that's a different option. I wonder what that does. And so I think one of the things that happened when I went to Japan is actually I was more pleased than I expected to be, because when I was young, it's sort of a strange trivia fact about me, but my family used to smuggle artwork out of Czechoslovakia during the Soviet occupation.
Oh, wow.
And so as a child, I was being dragged over to Prague behind the Iron Curtain. And so I spent a lot of time as a young child sort of traveling to Europe. And the cool thing about that was that back then, Europe felt like a different country. You know, when you went to Prague or Italy or England or France, it really felt like a different country. The food was different, the cars were different, the stores were different. Now, because of the sort of corporatization of the planet, when you go to any Western industrialized city, they sort of feel a lot the same, you know, until you go to the old sections of the city where the architecture hasn't changed. The stores are pretty much the same. The cars are pretty much the same. Sometimes the food is pretty much the same until you get to the real sort of local food stuff. And so what the wonderful thing was when I first went to Japan, which was probably, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, the first time I went to Japan, it was a different country again. It felt just as foreign as Europe had back in sort of the 80s.
Right.
And that was really nice because I like going to some place where things are different. I don't want to go there and see all the same stuff. I'm going there for a reason, you know. If I'm going to sit in a cramped airplane seat for 12 hours, I want to step off the plane and be in a different country.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was really the wonderful thing about Japan, was to go, oh wow, this place really is different, and that was really gratifying to me.
Great. Ed? Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, Jammer, did you have any questions?
Hey, what's up, Crispin? This is Joseph.
Hey, how you doing?
That's your
Good.
name.
How's it? Yes, that's my real name. Let's see here. This is a simple one. Have you watched any series lately that you really enjoyed? Because whenever I talk to you, I like to hear what you've been watching lately, if anything.
Yeah, to be frank, once I got deeper and deeper into being a voice actor and working on anime, I had very little time to watch the anime outside of the anime that I was working on. And trying to keep track of what the hell is going on in Haruhi Suzumiya is a job unto itself. So, I honestly, I have not watched much recently besides Durarara, which was the last show we were working on. And I was really impressed with Durarara, because when I was told the premise of it, that it was sort of this this story that was told from a bunch of different perspectives, I kind of go, oh, that could be a real train wreck. You really got to know what you're doing as a writer to make sure that you can do that without just making it confusing. And I think they really pulled it off quite well, at least for the episodes that I've seen, all the stuff that we've dubbed so far. And one of the things, so not only do I appreciate it from a structural perspective, because I think it actually does make a lot of sense and I can follow it and I think it's engaging to see it from different angles, but I also love the fact that they incorporate a sort of fantastical or mysterious element with this idea of Celti as this, as the headless rider going through the streets of Tokyo on her motorcycle. Because she's a Doulahan, because she is this sort of fairy tale creature, it adds this other aspect to the storytelling that's a little more sort of urban fantasy Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But what's really great is that they don't just keep her hidden. They could just say, well, she's this headless rider, but no one really knows, or the people who do know, no one really listens to them, and it'll just stay an urban legend forever and ever. But that's not what happens. There comes a point in the series where she actually reveals herself publicly to a large crowd of people. And so now there is no denying that there is, in fact, an Irish fairy running loose in Tokyo. Right? Wow. What do you do with that? You know, now what does that mean? And I love the fact that they take it to the next level. And, of course, the next thing that happens is suddenly this evil, creepy police motorcycle officer comes into the scene and scares the hell out of Celti. And now she's freaking out because she doesn't know how to deal with this. I love the fact that they're willing to take it to what's the next logical step in the storytelling. And it doesn't jump the shark.
Right.
You know, it's not like, oh, we're going to... It's sort of like, I mean, my thing was, I grew up, Moonlighting was the big TV show. And the question was... And Sybil Shepherd.
Right.
And were they going to get together or not? Or were they going to get together or not? And as soon as they kissed, the show basically ended.
Right.
Like, it lost all steam. And it could be the thing where Celti could reveal herself and then the story completely loses focus. but instead it actually gets more interesting. You're like, ooh.
It's actually a much different show in the second half. It focuses more intensely on the sort of the three main characters, and it's just as good. It's just it changes focus a little bit in the second half.
It's a great show. I love that show.
Yeah, so I'm very fond of that. The last show that I think I watched for my own personal satisfaction, and wasn't just desperately trying to do research before I went in to record, was Ouran High School Host Club, which I'm sure now is ancient old news. But
no one's heard of it.
At cons, you still see cons, but that is still a popular series.
Yeah, I think that was the last one I watched for my own personal preference, and I still don't know why to this day it came up on my radar. I mean, obviously I knew it was popular, but the name itself, I kind of went, really? Do I want to sit down and watch this? And then I sat down and watched it. I was like, oh my God, this story is amazing. It's so well put together. It's so tight. There's very little sort of fat on the story. It moves. It has wonderful visual symbolism going on. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Where has this show been? So, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, this might be kind of an obscure question, but I know just about everyone on this panel right now is a huge fan of Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. I noticed that you did the voice of Reducto in the video game. So what was it like stepping into a role that was created by Stephen Colbert and having to do that for a video game?
Wow, that's an obscure reference. Yeah, I do celebrity voice matches for a couple of different actors. And the Stephen Colbert one was sort of funny because they had to have two characters. One was the Reducto, and then the other one was the more straightforward lawyer character that's closer to Colbert's normal voice.
Right.
Or at least his on-TV voice, if that's normal. And I couldn't really nail Colbert's natural voice. He's got a little more rasp than I do, and I couldn't quite get it. But the Reducto was cartoony enough that I could get it, and so they cast me for that. And it's always interesting going in for those sort of celebrity voice match things, because you have to sort of channel this other actor's performance to try to make it sound consistent. Right. And it can be a lot of fun, because, I mean, I guess it's sort of vocal cosplay. I don't know. But I do celebrity voice matching for Orlando Bloom. I did all the Pirates of the Caribbean video games.
Oh, wow.
And now I do Legolas for Lord of the Rings. And I also do voice matching for Ben Stiller for Madagascar for Alex the Lion.
Oh, wow.
So I did the first Madagascar video game, I want to say like 2 years ago now. And then I've done commercials and the weirdest thing is I've done theme parks and cruise ships.
Like Disney and like Six Flags?
Well, what happens is that I think it was Royal Caribbean licensed the Madagascar characters to use in their advertising for their cruises. And what they decided to do as part of that licensing deal was to create shows on the cruise ship, like they do. You know, they have all sorts of different musical shows on the cruise ships. And they decided to build one around the Madagascar characters, which was actually pretty ingenious because the back of their cruise ship has some sort of pool in it that they can drain. So if you've seen Madagascar 2, the whole thing is that the water hole dries up. And so they physically drain the pool on the cruise ship to match what happens in Madagascar 2. And so, but they've got these dudes who are going to be in these hot, sweaty suits dressed up as the animals. But they need the animals to sound like the real people, so they hire us to sing the songs and do all the lines. Which means that some poor schmuck on a cruise ship somewhere once a week is getting in a sweaty costume and dancing around to my voice. Wow. And I just felt, I mean, and here I am sitting comfy in a studio going, I'm sorry, dude. They asked me to come in and sing like Alex the Lion, and I did, and they wrote me a check, and now you probably hate me. I don't know what to say.
Wow. It's pretty incredible.
I got one.
Yeah, Steve.
Crispin, I watched this little movie this past week. You might have heard of it. It's called Howls Moving Castle.
Oh, yeah. Who did that? I don't remember.
Miyazuki?
Mitsubishi.
Mr. Miyagi?
Mr. Miyagi. I think that's who it was.
But no, it's Miyazaki movie.
You almost made that a mistake.
Yeah, screwed that up. But no, you're It's a very small role in it, but you're Prince Turnip, and
Small role.
I
love that movie.
Prince Turnip
It's
only speaks at the end of the movie. I'm just curious what the whole story was being casted into that.
Oh yeah, you're right. You did.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience because I had just started working with my agent, and there was a young agent there who is no longer there. She's moved on to somewhere else. But at the time, she was sort of a young agent, and she was a go-getter, and she was trying to say, you know, I can get you in at Pixar. I can get you in at all these different studios. And what she meant was that she could get me in to play like background characters at Pixar. And but I sort of took her up on it, and I said, really, you can get me in at Pixar? Well, Pixar is dubbing Howl's Moving Castle. Can you get me in on that? And she went, what? Because she was completely unaware of it at the time. She's like, well, I don't know, but let me see. And so, true to her word, she gave a whole bunch of calls around, and she called me one day and said, hi, the guys at Disney, because it was, you know, the Disney deal and Pixar, they said, the guys at Disney are listening to your demo and considering you for Howl's Moving Castle, but, you know, no promises, we don't know what's going to happen, who knows? And I was like, okay, cool, I'm glad they listen to my demos and all good. And 2 hours later, she calls back and goes, well, that was easy, show up at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And I was like, what? And then it said, yeah, you're going to play either some soldier or a prince. They're not sure which one yet. Wow. And I thought, okay, fine. So I show up, and it was actually my first time on the Disney lot. I drove onto the Disney lot, parked my car, had to walk down Goofy Drive and take a right on Mickey Mouse Lane, which is also known as Pluto's Corner, if you ever find yourself on the Disney lot, and wandered into the ADR studios where they were doing the dubbing for this. And they walked in and they said, we've cast the soldier. And the soldier was, if you remember the film, he's the one in the beginning who's all skeezy with Sophie, who's trying to pick her up with his buddies and is being all sort of sexually harassing. Mm-hmm. And Howl swoops in and sort of gets her out of the situation. And he said, well, we were able to find a sleazy actor in L.A. Who knew? But we're having a hard time casting this Prince character because he's supposed to be a boy, but he looks like a girl. And I was like, stop right there. I know exactly what to do. Like, this is my kind of character. Trust me, it'll be fine. Just sit back and relax. And they had scheduled like an hour to get it all recorded because they were used to dealing with more celebrity-type actors who don't have a lot of experience dubbing to picture. And so I waltz in there, and they set it up on this huge screen. And usually I'm just in a little booth. This time I'm in a full movie theater. I mean, it's up on the big screen, and I've got the mic in front of me, and I'm in this massive cavernous theater. And it goes, you know, beep, 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 and I nail like 3 lines right in a row without, you know, sort of missing a lip flap. And everyone just stops, and they just look at me, and they go, you've done this before, haven't you? I'm like, yeah, can we keep rolling? Can we keep going? So we finished up my part in like 15 minutes, and we spent the other 45 minutes talking about Miyazaki and storytelling, and they'd say things like, so why is he doing this, that, and the other thing? Oh, well, let me explain to you about Bishonen and how that works. And, oh, it's because Tezuka used to go to the all-female theater troupe Takarazuka in Tokyo, and there's this whole branch of anime and manga that's sort of shoujo, and da-da-da-da-da, and they just sort of, you know, their eyes would glaze over and go, what? So yeah, it was great. And then later, Ned Lott, who was the casting director for that at the time, it was casted through Disney Character Voices, which is a division of Disney. Their job is to make sure that the Disney animated characters sound the same over time. Mm-hmm. So it's their job to make sure Goofy sounds like Goofy and Mickey sounds like Mickey. And as actors pass on, they have to find new actors to play those parts. And they're the ones who cast me as Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean, because Will Turner is a Disney character. And so if Orlando's not going to play him, they need to find somebody who sounds just like Orlando. So I ended up working with Ned Lott a lot later as the Orlando Bloom voice match. But he was doing some interview, and they said, so did anyone request to be on Howl's Moving Castle? He's like, yeah, this one guy, Crispin Freeman. This one guy said, hey, can I be on the film? and I was like, really? No one else like expressed interest? And he's like, no, not really. I was like, wow, their loss.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's just funny what stems into me taking interest in that is if you ever check out the anime Sargent Frog, Funimation, they dub in Dallas, they make an obscure reference to your character in one of the episodes.
Do they?
in the show, the main character Kero, which is this tiny little alien frog, dresses up as a scarecrow, and he says, "Oh, I look just like a lovable scarecrow voiced by Crispin Freeman in the dub."
Well, that's yeah. We did something like that in Lucky Star. There's a section of the anime where the main characters go to this anime store, and one of the guys working there is the voice actor Sugita, who plays the voice of Kyon in Haruhi Suzumiya. And so he's dressed up as Kyon, but it's supposed to be the voice actor working as, retail in this anime store. And they thought, well, who should we get to voice Sugita? Crispin. We should have Crispin come in and voice Sugita. So it was pretty funny because I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? This isn't Haruhi. What show is this? Why are all these little girls running around? I'm so confused. But now it looks like I may actually be able to meet Sugita when I go to Japan at the end of March.
Oh wow, that's sweet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to set up an interview with me and Sugita so we can both talk about what it's like to play Kyon both in Japanese and English. So that'll be
That
exciting.
actually poses, I think, another good question. How many of your counterparts in Japan have you met?
I haven't. The only voice actors that I've actually met face to face are Tomokazu Seiki, who's been in everything, and Maya Sakamoto. Those are the two I met sort of personally. I was master of ceremonies when they were doing interviews, panels at Anime Expo, I believe, I want to say like 2005. I think it was back then that they were guests at Anime Expo. And so they had panels, and I was sort of the moderator for their panels. I also met briefly the woman who plays Naga in Slayers, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head because it was very brief in passing. And most of the other people that I've met in anime are actually not voice actors. They're either directors. I met Kamiyama, who was the director for Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. We had a wonderful dinner together in Tokyo. I've met Ishikawa-san, who is the I in Production IG. I've met Yoko Kanno, the composer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
She was quite fun. I met her many years ago now. I think it was back in 1999, I think.
Oh, wow.
I met her at Otakon in Baltimore. And at that time, I didn't have as many shows under my belt as I do now.
Right.
And she asked me in her English, which was a lot better than my Japanese, she asked me, oh, you're a voice actor, what shows do you do? And I started rattling off the shows, and she hadn't worked on any of them, so I didn't expect her to recognize them. But one of them I had worked that I had worked on, she had done the music for. She'd done the opening song for Record of Lotus War, the TV series, Chronicles of the Heroic Knight. She hadn't done any of the other music for the show, but she had done the opening theme song. And so I mentioned to her, I'm in Lotus, Chronicles of the Heroic Knight. And she goes, oh, who do you play in Lotus? And I said, I play Spark, who was sort of the young hero in Lotus. And she's like, oh, Spark, hi. And I said, I also play Grass Runner Mar, who is this little blonde elf who's like the size of a gnome. And she looked at me funny and she said, you play Ma? And I was like, yeah. She goes, but Ma's a funny voice. And I go, yeah, she's good. And she sort of got sort of quiet and she went, do Ma. And I was like, hi, I'm Grass Runner Mar. And she's like, oh, you're so handsome. It's such a funny voice. I was like, oh, thank you, Yoko Kanno. You just made my century.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think, Ikuhara-san, Ikuhara, who is the director of Revolutionary Girl Utena, and was also the director for, I think he started on the second season of Sailor Moon and sort of directed a bunch of those seasons. So Ikuhara for a while was living here in Los Angeles, and I would see him often at conventions, but we first met working on Utena because he actually came to New York to help work on the English dub of Utena, of the movie, not the TV series, but the movie.
So you've been sort of bi-coastal in your career. What's sort of the differences in sort of working out of LA and back when you were working in New York?
Well, working in New York, it was a different sensibility back then because the studios that were licensing the anime had very little contact with the original Japanese production companies. So they didn't adapt the scripts. What would happen is we'd be in the studio, and the scripts we would have would be the subtitle scripts, which were great for subtitles, but didn't always match lip flap. In fact, almost never matched lip flap. So we would be sort of rewriting the script on the fly in the booth, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't.
Yeah.
On things like that were comedies, like Slayers, it worked really well. Because we could sort of make things funny in the moment, and I think it helped add to the chemistry of the show. In other shows like Utena, it was a little touch and go, and there were times when I would have to sort of tell the directors what was going on in the story because they didn't know, and they were making decisions that didn't make any sense. And so I'd have to go, okay, guys, we're going off the rails. Let's steer this back. When I came out to L.A., there was a bit of a higher level of production. Now, admittedly, this is back 11 years ago. Things have changed a lot since then.
Right.
But back in 2001, when I moved to Los Angeles, they were adapting all the scripts. They were in closer communication with the Japanese producers because LA is closer than New York. And so there were actual employees of the Japanese company living in Los Angeles. And so they were a little more hands-on with the production quality here in L.A. And so I really had to sort of step up my game. That was one of the first things I had to do. Is I was like, wow, I'm playing in the big leagues now. I gotta really step up. Since then, anime, especially as ADV sort of rose and Funimation rose, it sort of it raised up the entire quality level sort of across the country. Because it stopped being these sort of little localized markets and a couple of anime shows here and there to sort of a torrent of anime coming into the U.S. And so everything had to, and everyone was sort of aware of what was going on. The dubs became more visible in a way, and the voice actors became more visible, and so suddenly the production level everywhere had to sort of rise up a bit. But I honestly don't. I mean, I haven't been voice acting in New York for many years, and the person that I work with who does work in New York is Michael Sinner-Nicholas, and Michael Sinner-Nicholas is a fantastic director. And what's wonderful is that he's allowed us to do bicoastal recordings, so that when they brought back Slayers for when they rebooted Slayers for Evolution and Revolution.
Right.
Sinter-Nicholas was able to bring the original cast back together in New York and still record me in Los Angeles, and bring in some of the Los Angeles talent. So in many ways, he got sort of the best of both worlds because he got his pick of the crop both in New York and in L.A. To make the show work. So I'm not sure what the situation like is now in New York, but back then it was a little more Wild West.
Right.
No.
Steve, did you?
Were there any questions in the chat? We've had that open. I'm sure someone's
I'm
asked
trying to find
something.
some good ones here.
I want to give them
Actually,
a
I
chance.
do have a question ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, sort of your more well-known characters like Alucard, Itachi from Naruto, and I think what was the other one I was looking at here? But they're sort of known as like characters who can be they're sort of sedate, but they can also have a capability of being incredibly intense when possible. What's sort of something that's required you to play against type? Something that sort of made you stretch your chops as an actor that you weren't really expecting.
Well, it's interesting. The types of characters that I played changed a lot when I came to L.A. because I think people got a different idea of what I could do. Mm-hmm. So when I was in New York, I tended to play older brother figures. Zelgadis in Slayers is sort of the serious, grumpy one.
Toga in Utena also.
Yeah, Toga is sort of the playboy. He's more sort of the older brother character.
Right. I
I also played Captain Tyler, who was sort of this young, rambunctious Winnie the Pooh in charge of a spaceship, which I really loved playing because that was sort of a wonderful stretch for me. But I was playing a lot of young heroes. It wasn't until I got to L.A. when I got cast as Alucard that suddenly I started getting cast as the heavy. That I started getting cast as sort of the big guy who's going to rip you to pieces.
Right, and Shizuo from Durarara was the other one I was thinking of.
Right, exactly. Alucard and Shizuo are sort of these forces of nature that sort of go crazy. And that's when, and also when I got to LA, I started really getting cast as the dark, brooding characters, whether it was Amon in Witch Hunter Robin, or Alex Rowe in Last Exile. The brooders kept coming out of the woodwork. And so the stuff that started surprising me is when they would cast me for comedy, when they wanted to cast me for Hideki in Chobits. And I went, wow, okay, sure, let's do Hideki in Chobits, because, he's like, couldn't be more opposite of me. He's a country bumpkin who doesn't understand technology, and I was just like, wow, sure, let's do Hideki. And so that's another sort of archetype that I have in my wheelhouse, is sort of the eager beaver who's maybe a little clueless. And also, frankly, I was almost a little surprised by Kyon in Haruhi Suzumiya, until I realized that he's the sarcastic grouch. He's not that far in sort of temperament from Zelgadis. He's a similar type of character, and in fact, you can sort of track that through the rest of the characters. You can say Lena is a lot like Haruhi. She's sort of the pushy one, and Gaori's sort of dumb and sort of smiley. And in a way, Itsuki acts that way, even though Itsuki in Haruhi isn't really dumb. He sort of acts like, I'm just here being pleasant. And then Asahina is sort of the big-breasted, jovial one, which is just like Amelia. Like, you start to see the same archetypes show up in the storytelling over and over again.
Sure. So before we let you go, is there anything that you're working on, or currently working on, or going to be on, that you'd like to tell people about?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to animation and video games, they never let us talk about stuff beforehand. So I can't talk about anything that isn't already sort of out of the bag. But we've finished up recording on the second season of Young Justice, which I believe should be airing now. And that's been a lot of fun. I've also finished up most of the recording for Diablo 3, where I play the male wizard character. I think the game is still in beta. I'm not sure when Blizzard will release it. They will release no game before it's time. That would be Blizzard. But I'm really looking forward to when Diablo 3 comes out. And mostly I've been doing a lot of work on my blog and podcast, Voice Acting Mastery. I teach a lot of voice acting and mythology classes here in Los Angeles, but I realized that there were a lot of people around the world who wanted to learn about voice acting, so I started a blog and podcast called voiceactingmastery.com to try to reach out to the people all around the world who wanted to learn about voice acting. And I've been in beta tests for some online classes as well, so I hope to be able to offer some online voice acting classes probably in the next month.
I saw your podcast has been doing really well too, because I incessantly check those. But it's really cool that you're doing that as well, because I know there's a lot of people, probably everyone at an anime convention, who wants to learn about that.
Right, they all want to learn about it, and they're like, how do I be a voice actor? And it's like, we have 10 minutes in a panel. It's sort of a complicated subject. So now I get to say this wonderful thing. You want to know how to be a voice actor? Listen to my podcast. You have all the time in the world to listen to me talk about voice acting and play me over and over again. So it's actually been very nice, and I've been getting a lot of great feedback about it. So I'm very happy with it.
So once again, Crispin, thanks for coming on, and once again, you bring in the money for Japan. We have gotten, over the course of us talking, $205.
Fantastic.
We're up to $33,305, including last year's total, so that brings us to almost 3,000 or 2,600.
2605, Zach.
2605.
Well, it's just nice to have you on when we're still
conscious,
very much awake. Yeah.
Yes, I mean I'd like to say that I'd be cool with this sort of 3 a.m. slot, but I can't do that so much. So, bully for you guys for being able to stay up all night. So
I apologize for last year. I don't know how you were able to talk to us without, like... But no, I appreciate it. Thank you, Crispin.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.